So, have you ever stopped to wonder what actually is the true American classical music? I mean, usually when we hear classical music, we immediately picture grand European concert halls, right? Music composed centuries ago, played exactly as it's written on the page, note for note. But what if you were looking for a genre that acts as the ultimate auditory metaphor for the American experience itself? A music that's completely alive, totally unpredictable, and just fiercely independent. Where exactly would you look? Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a sound that didn't just happen to emerge from America. It kind of is America. We're talking, of course, about jazz. We're going to explore jazz not just as a cool musical genre, but truly as America's very own classical music. Because it was born from this incredibly rich, chaotic mix of diverse cultures, backgrounds, and real historical struggles. It's a sound that perfectly pieces together the giant puzzle of American identity. All right, let's jump right into section one, the nature of jazz. To really get why this music is so special, we first have to understand how it actually works. Imagine I play a note, and you answer me back with your own completely unique twist. What are we doing? We're having a conversation. And that call and response is exactly how jazz operates. The absolute bedrock of this musical conversation is improvisation. It's creating music right there on the spot. So unlike traditional classical music where every single note is meticulously scripted out ahead of time, jazz relies heavily on individual musicians driving the performance forward with completely unscripted solos. They're literally inventing the music live right in front of you. And it creates this beautiful push and pull, this incredible tension. On one side, you've got the soloist. They represent fierce individual expression, bringing their own totally unique style to the forefront. But on the other side, you have the band. They represent teamwork, support, and that crucial call and response dynamic. It's honestly the perfect mirror for the American ideal, isn't it? Celebrating extreme individualism while still demanding that you work together as a tight-knit community to actually create something beautiful. Now, to bring that tension to life, jazz leans on two main musical elements. First up, you have swing rhythms. This is what gives the music its upbeat, forward momentum. It's that driving life force that physically makes you want to tap your feet or just get up and dance. But answering that upbeat joy is the emotional weight of the blue notes. These are slightly altered, kind of melancholy notes that deliver this deep, raw emotion and sadness. It's the sheer joy of the swing perfectly balancing out the pain of the blues. So we've got this complex mixture of joy, sorrow, individual genius, and serious teamwork. Moving into section two, origins and global spread. Where do you think a mixture like that could possibly come from? Well, it all kicks off in the late 19th and early 20th century, specifically in the exceptionally diverse African American communities of New Orleans. The city was a total cultural melting pot where blues, ragtime, and traditional marching bands all just fused together. From there, local musicians started touring, carrying that sound right up the river to cities like Chicago and New York. Then, during World War I, American musicians, like James Reese Europe and his famous Hellfighters band, actually took jazz across the Atlantic, entertaining British and French soldiers right in the trenches. By the 1920s, jazz had exploded. It was a massive, unstoppable global phenomenon. Which brings us to section three, the evolution of styles. Now, this is really the heart of the story, because jazz, much like the country it came from, absolutely refused to just sit still. As the culture shifted, the music evolved right alongside it, and at lightning speed. Let's actually walk through these eras, because over just a few short decades, we see massive, game-changing paradigm shifts. It starts in the 1900s with ragtime. This was mostly piano-based, known for its really heavily syncopated rhythm, what they called ragging the time. But, fast forward to the 1920s and 30s, and people wanted to dance. So the music morphs into the highly danceable, heavily orchestrated big band sound of swing. It literally became the pop music of America. But then, boom, a major shift happens. By the late 40s and into the 50s, a new generation of musicians decided they didn't just want to be background noise for a dance floor. They wanted jazz to be treated as serious art music that you sit down and actively listen to. They consciously rebelled against those rigid big band structures and created bebop. We're talking smaller clubs, blazing fast tempos, incredibly complex chord changes. It was all about showcasing pure technical mastery. And almost immediately, as a kind of relaxed, laid-back reaction to that frantic bebop energy, cool jazz steps onto the scene. Then the 1960s hit. The whole country is going through massive social upheaval, right? And jazz reflects that perfectly with free jazz. Musicians literally tore up the rulebook. They tossed out traditional chords and steady tempos entirely in favor of pure, unfiltered emotional expression. Finally, by the 1970s, to stay relevant in a world that was suddenly dominated by electric rock and funk, jazz musicians just plugged in. They blended it all together to create fusion. It's just this relentless century of musical innovation where every single era directly answers the one that came right before it. Okay, Section 4, Legends of the Genre. Let's take a quick look at the pioneers who actually drove this incredible evolution forward, the absolute titans. We're talking about a legendary roster here. Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis, Duke Ellington, John Coltrane, Thelonious Monk, and of course, the unparalleled Billie Holiday. Now, I want to point out something really fascinating about those first two names. Both Louis Armstrong and Miles Davis played the exact same instrument, the trumpet. Yet in jazz, the ultimate goal is establishing your own distinct sound. If you listen to an Armstrong solo and then immediately listen to a Davis solo, they sound completely, wonderfully different from one another. They were using the exact same tool, but speaking entirely different musical languages. And because of that intense focus on unique, individual expression, we get this beautiful reality. Every night, every performance can be a little bit different, changing up the structure of the song to fit a different performance. Think about that. In live jazz, no two recordings of the same song are ever going to be exactly the same. If a musician plays a set for 7 nights in a row, you are getting 7 completely unique performances based entirely on how they feel in that exact moment. It's a living, breathing art form. And if you want to see this living art form in action, you have to go to a jam session. It's an informal gathering where musicians just get together to play, collaborate, try out brand new solos, and test songs without any strict, rigid plan holding them back. It is the ultimate testing ground for musical creativity, just pure, unfiltered experimentation and communication between artists. Now, if you want to hear what all this genius actually sounds like, consider this your direct listening syllabus. We've got Dave Brubeck's wild time signature in Take 5, Duke Ellington's deeply swinging Take the A Train, Thelonious Monk's moody Round Midnight, and John Coltrane's just breathtaking take on My Favorite Things. But honestly, if I had to recommend just one starting point for you, pull up So What by Miles Davis. It is an absolute masterclass in improvisation. When you hear it, you will immediately get what makes this music so deeply captivating. Which leads us nicely to Section 5, the cultural mirror. We need to ask, why does this matter so deeply to the broader American story? Why is it so much more than just a few notes played in a smoky club? Well, because jazz is fundamentally a historical document. Born directly from African-American creativity and ingenuity, it inherently highlights the complex, often painful history of the U.S., echoing very real societal struggles regarding class, race, and integration. It acts as a brilliant cultural mirror reflecting that core tension we talked about earlier, this relentless drive for individualism seamlessly woven into the absolute necessity of community teamwork. And its legacy isn't stuck in the past, it's very much alive today, celebrated passionately at massive events like the Newport Jazz Festival and the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. So, I want to leave you with one final, kind of provocative thought. If a nation were a band, what kind of music would it play? For America, the answer is undeniably jazz. It's a music that is incredibly diverse, occasionally chaotic, deeply emotional, fiercely independent, yet stunningly collaborative. If this explainer has sparked your curiosity and you want to dive a bit deeper into this cultural microcosm, I highly, highly recommend checking out Ken Burns' renowned documentary series, simply titled Jazz. It's an amazing way to continue the journey. Thank you so much for joining me. Keep listening, and I'll catch you next time.